It's not a one horse race. It's not a one horse race. Welcome to High on Football, and we are back again on this very boring weekend with no football because of international duty. Me and Pratik have just been cribbing about it just a while earlier, but even though there is no Premier League football or club football, there is a lot of international football and football based news to look forward to. So we have a whole range of topics to cover today, but we have to start from what happened over the weekend because it was just, in Mourinho's words, it was just beautiful. It was just amazing to watch. It was just fantastic to watch Man United lose at home. And
6-1.
Mourinho 6-1, Mourinho pulling one over big time over his old club. I mean, if it was Chelsea at the receiving end, you and me would be like thoroughly depressed right now. So I can understand what Man United fans are going through right now. That meltdown has been so insanely, satisfying. But it is the age of overreaction. We all tend to go a bit overboard with what we are feeling about our clubs and everything. So, it's been a tad extreme to be very honest. But then
Tad?
we had
Really a tad?
Liverpool.
You call Liverpool's Aston Villa 7 to a tad?
No, no, that was not that. I'm saying, when Man United fans were just, getting hang of the whole thing that just happened, here was Liverpool. You didn't know what to feel after that result. So, what did you make of it? Did you watch the 7-2?
Yeah, I watched both the games actually, the 7-2 and the 6-1. I mean, if you ask me what did I make of it, I didn't make much out of it really. Like, did anyone make anything out of it is my question. I mean, it was all over the, like we were talking about Liverpool the last preview, right? And I was
Yeah.
I was taking back my words that I had said it's not going to be a season for Liverpool, but hey, we have been proved wrong for two consecutive weekends
They
because
had just bought Thiago and Jota, and you were like, oh fuck, they're spending money as well now. So it was all looking rosy for Liverpool. And Man United had just lost 6-1. Your greatest rivals are right at the bottom. It can't get worse and better for you at the same time.
and in a weekend when Chelsea won 4-0, our first clean sheet of the season.
In a weekend where we won 4 comfortably won.
Yeah, and with Ben Chilwell scoring and assisting. So it was all over the place. It was bloody all over the place, and that was the beauty of it, as you were saying. but
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 the Man United one I could see coming. Man United haven't been playing well, and Tottenham are a good side. They have good pace. Harry Kane has been in form, and Son has been playing well. I think Ndombele was probably the player of the game for me. Although Harry Kane comes really close, but Ndombele had also a very good game. So Jose's words clearly have done something there. But I couldn't predict the Liverpool one. I think we expected them to lose, but to lose 7-2. I mean, what was going on?
you were talking about Man United Tottenham as if you were expecting a 6-1. I mean, it was an old
Not a
Trafford
big
for
one. The 10 men also fixed the game, yes. And they looked like a very deflated team, to be very honest. I mean, the second goal went in, and you know that this is going to be a spanking tonight. So that result, I can still understand. The team's morale is not there. Liverpool, though, that one just threw me off completely. No, I just couldn't make out what happened there. I get have you can have defensive lapses. It can happen. You lose 4-0, 3-0, 4-1, 7-2. I don't see any logic for that.
and what about Oli Watkins' magnificent hat trick against Liverpool of all teams?
I was impressed by Ross Barkley, dude. I was like, Ross Barkley could
I
have had a hat
know.
trick. I was like, dude,
Even Jack
I
Wilshere
mean,
for that matter.
yeah, Jack Wilshere had a very good game. But the thing about Ross Barkley, I mean, I know some Chelsea fans are not very happy about this loan business because Barkley had a decent second of the season last year, and he was looking good in some games like the Carling Cup game. But the problem with Barkley always has been consistency. I mean, one day he's prime Zidane, the other day he's worse than, you know, I don't know, Konduzi maybe. I don't know why Konduzi, but Konduzi. It's like you can't have a player who's so inconsistent in the team when you're trying to challenge for top honors. And I think Aston Villa might suit Barkley a lot.
Yeah, of course it will suit him much better than Chelsea because at Chelsea he found himself as one of the also Rams, so to speak, because he always had competition, but he had got a lot of chances over the past 2 years as well. And if you go to any big club, I mean there are as many chances as you can bank on. If you want to be part of a big club, you need to show your world class, in a consistent fashion. And yeah, there'll be ups and downs, yes, but have not really seen the best of him, in as many games as we would have liked to, even as Chelsea fans.
Yeah.
Why he would I think he would fare better at Aston Villa is because Aston Villa he can be one of the, Jack Grealish was kind of alone in the midfield till now. I mean, taking nothing away from John McGinn, who is a brilliant player in his own right. But I think Ross Barkley will get a, headlining position there, and he can actually lead that team, away from the spotlight, because the spotlight obviously wasn't working for him. But like, enough of the Chelsea links here. I mean, let's not take anything away from a
It's like a plug-in, It's like a product placement that we do.
as I was saying, a brilliant Aston Villa over the last weekend. I mean, what a game they had played. It stopped looking like an
Could have
Aston
been
after
10-2. It could have been 10-2 easily. I mean, if they had converted all the chances that they had, it could have been a
and,
cricket
and that's
score.
and that's the thing. I mean, you see upsets. I mean, you expect upsets maybe in the line of a 2-1 or a 1-0 with, two penalties thrown in, one red card or something like that. It was 11 champion players, from last season, and they have just,
Actually, actually 10 and Adrian. So, I mean, I don't rate Adrian. I mean, he had a terrible game, to be very honest. Not that his defense really helped them much, but Allison is out now for what, 4 weeks, so he'll probably miss four
around five
matches.
six weeks.
Probably miss around 4 games, and
Yes.
they don't really have a replacement other than Adrian.
Yep.
So if I'm playing Liverpool in the next 4 games, I will try and shoot as much as possible because that defense and that goalkeeper are going to be so short of confidence.
No, no, but
It's not
I
fun.
don't think we have seen Liverpool
Now
this
they know what it
season.
feels like. Now they know what it feels like to have Kepa in goal. There you go.
In my honest opinion, Kepa is much worse than Adrian, but that's only me.
No, dude. I feel sorry to say this, but between Kepa and Adrian, I probably have Kepa.
We might
It's just
actually end
I
up with
don't
Kepa in
know.
our next game.
It's a terrible debate to have. Whom do you want in your goal, Adrian or Kepa? But I'll probably go for Kepa.
Like so it was as if Liverpool were wearing Aston Villa shirts and playing that game because Aston Villa looked like the champions in that game. I mean, Liverpool weren't there. They just
But
weren't. They
to be
didn't.
fair to Aston Villa, though, they had some wonderful chemistry. I mean, it was the first game together, Barkley and Grealish and Watkins, but it seemed that there was this automatic connection between the three of them because they were opening up Liverpool for fun. The right hand side with Joe Gomez and Trent Alexander Arnold, they were having a gala time on the
Torrid
flank.
games. Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, goalkeeping mistakes, Chelsea fans would know the best about it, how much it affects your game. But overall, that Liverpool defense was nowhere to be seen
Symbolic.
on that day. Absolutely.
Liverpool defense, still boasting of Virgil van Dijk, who played in that game and played the entire
Yeah.
match to be
I
to be
mean,
fair to him.
I feel very strange saying this, but I think for the first time you saw how much Henderson is important for that team.
Henderson always has been important for that play, but I have a much more much more pertinent question here, which I've been thinking about. Like again, it was a case of the high line defense and high pressing style, like being busted over the past few weeks. We had talked about this in our last podcast, but I think the team that was involved in that conversation was Man City. But if we are talking about a high defensive line and high pressing, I mean, Liverpool are the flag bearers of that kind of play. So, are we seeing a counter style of play that is capable of breaking the Liverpool and Man City gameplay? I mean, what do you think?
I think based on the results that we have already seen, I mean, Leeds have run both Man City and Liverpool close. They have, tried to exploit that high line very well and to good effect. Um, Leicester City did one over Man City. They completely destroyed that high line, and now we have seen the same with Aston Villa. So clearly, teams are finding some holes in the armor as far as Liverpool and Manchester City is concerned, because these are the two sides who have played this high line very well over the last couple of seasons. So I think teams are trying to, they have figured out a way. Last season, if you remember, when Wolves beat Man City earlier in the season, that was the first time someone actually tried to exploit that high line very well and actually managed to find some results out of that. So I think you will see more and more teams attack Liverpool and Man City with this highline approach more and more, and hopefully to better effect. It was awesome watching. These guys seem like mere mortals, and it gives you hope that there will be more results like this, and Liverpool won't have that easier run that like they had last season.
But
So
that
I'm
that
really
actually
happy.
that actually brings us to our next question. Is this going to be the season of upsets? Like
Yes,
we already
this was
have had
this
quite
this
many
was what
upsets till
we were.
now. Is
Yeah,
this
this was what we were coming to.
title race wide open?
Too easy, too early to talk about the title race. Still, I mean, we are just 4 games in, and what the earlier games have shown us really is key. None of the teams are really there yet. You know, no one has really found out what their best 11 is right now. So I think we should
Except Aston Villa.
probably postpone. Yeah, we should probably, postpone the title talk for a bit later. We'll do it in another podcast itself. But I think right now, 4 games in, it's going to be a very open season, is what my feeling is. I mean, because we started off with Aston Villa, I mean, we have to talk about Leeds as well. First time in the Premier League, and the way Leeds have started, it seems they have a style, they have a philosophy which is very forward thinking, and Bielsa as a coach has the chops to really, mold his team in a manner that will really challenge any team that they come across. And they have started off with very big teams in front. And like we have seen with the Evertons, even Wolves have been inconsistent. Sheffield United haven't had a good start, and you don't really know which
What to
teams are
expect?
going to fit where. I mean, West Ham, look at West Ham. They started off and you were like, oh, these guys are like not going to make it. But suddenly David Moyes is at home and the team is playing well again. So it's very strange, and I am not really sure how to make out of it, because it's probably, we were discussing this in the last podcast. Is it a lack of preseason that's affecting the players because there is no match fitness? A lot of players are still to come back, and there is so much turmoil in clubs as well regarding transfers and whatnot. So it probably is going to be one of the most open seasons in a long time. I think Leicester is the last one that I can think of when it was so, nobody was really willing to take it up. But probably, I'm just hoping that it's a really open season.
Yeah, it is. It is actually quite early to speak about the entire season. And I remember we were talking about Aston Villa as one of the relegation contenders when we were starting off the season.
Yes. How foolish of
And
us.
how things change. Yeah, that aged well.
Yeah. So clearly not doing the Premier League predictions before the transfer window closes was a good move on our part.
Did we do it?
That's what we clearly not doing the predictions earlier before the transfer window had closed was a good move on our part,
No, but didn't
because
we do a set of predictions already?
yeah, but nobody saw it. So, this is fresh viewers,
What if
this
they're
is
watching
fresh.
this?
Yeah, what you are going to watch next in the sessions, that is just our first Premier League predictions. We
Oh,
haven't done anything before.
of course, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just goes on to prove that, even one or two quality signings can make such a huge difference to your overall squad.
Okay, okay. Yeah, but very few signings have actually clicked, instantly in the Premier League this season. I mean, I actually, know of a certain James Rodriguez from, Everton these days, who has taken to the Premier League like a duck to water. But other than
Yeah.
that, most signings are still finding their feet. And
But
I think they will
but
only
if you
get.
talk about the likes of Aston Villa, I think Emi Martinez is the bargain of the summer in my mind. I
Yes,
think
yes, he is.
it is a absolutely fantastic deal that they have cracked. Plus, they have brought pretty well. I thought Ollie Watkins was quite impressive in the last game in the way he came across Van Dijk. He was like almost Drogba-esque, the way he shielded the ball, and he was bringing Grealish and what's his name,
Barclay.
um, Barkley into play. So it seems they have really spent wisely this season. I know what you're talking about. Most signings need a little bit time to gel, but we haven't really seen most signings come into play as of yet. We are yet to see Van de Beek, even start regularly at Man United. Chelsea have a few players to come back, like had like Ziyech and Pulisic, who's almost like a new signing. And when all these players start getting fitter and probably sharper, maybe we'll start seeing a more distinctive pattern in the way these teams start getting more consistent results. So yeah, big few weeks before anything happens, and the international weeks are so tense. You don't know who is going to come back without any injuries, and we are already hearing things about Mendy getting injured in the Senegal camp, and he's coming back to Chelsea now. So Kepa, it is again maybe for Southampton. So yeah, I don't know what to think of it.
But you're talking about how teams would actually find their feet going forward, because of the dual reasons of one, them not having a good preseason, and secondly, their new signings still finding their feet in the league. But that actually takes us away from what we were kind of discussing here. Uh, do you think, going further forward into the season, the results would kind of start falling in place, as per expectations? Or do you actually, are like more inclined to thinking he maybe the Premier League has finally arrived to a point when there is nothing to choose between any two teams on a given day? I would actually side with the latter, because I don't know, I mean, that's the optimistic side of me. But I think that's the most exciting kind of optimism I've ever come across over the over the past year, to be to be very honest. This is 2020. We're all over the place already. So I actually like to think of the possibility when Man City are taking on Aston Villa at the Etihad, and they are not overwhelming favorites. I mean, that's like a nice new reality to encounter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very competitive season in the sense that man for man, you can't really pick out who's the top four. I mean, top four, even top 10 maybe. I think squad depth will come into play in the later stages. I mean, a lot of these teams are in a lot of competitions, and it will take a toll. I mean, none of these guys have had a great preseason as a workout as such. So the deeper they go into the season, you will see fatigue come into play. And what we have seen in previous years is teams with better squad depth usually tend to do well or tend to do better. I mean, Leicester was probably the only one with, a great first 11, but even they had some bench strength there. They had good players who would come on and, get some points. So if you look at the likes of Everton and, maybe Tottenham, their first 11s are fantastic and on their day probably will give anyone a good run for their money. But the more you go deeper into the season and you look at the bench strength, it's probably not the same as a Man City or a Liverpool as such, who have, just a better blend of bench and first team.
And I think
So
Ben Strength will actually play a much deeper role as we go more and more into the season because of the kind of season this is going out to be. Like
yeah,
we are going to have a very congested run of fixtures, like right after the
yeah,
international break comes to an end, and like, it's just going to continue until the end of the year. Like with double and triple game weeks, like natural affair all through. So yeah, I think injuries are going to have their role to play, and that's where the depths of the respective squads actually come in. And yeah, that's a very good point that you talked about Everton and Tottenham and their first 11s vis-a-vis their like the people who are waiting in the wings to come and replace those from the first team. So yeah, I mean, that's the logic that sets me back on my optimism once again. But I would actually want to see this as a season where the underdogs actually come up and play unabashed football against the heavyweights. And if it's a season, if the season is anything like what we had last week, I mean we're in for a bash. I mean it was thoroughly enjoyable. I mean
absolutely,
for as a
absolutely.
neutral, it was Man U, Tottenham, and the Aston Villa Liverpool matches were thoroughly enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to more weekend nights like those. So yeah, I mean.
Absolutely.
Uh, I mean, going forward, I mean, I would want the Chelsea squad to be much more settled down and the new signings bedding in and all of that. But yeah, I would love to have another open season. I mean, the Leicester season we keep talking about, and it was a thoroughly enjoyable season. I mean, it was one of those seasons. Even today, when I sometimes open YouTube, I'm very tempted to find a documentary on Leicester from that year. It was that kind of a season, right? I mean, it's a season worth remembering. And
Yeah.
well, with the year that we have had, I think this year actually deserves a season like that. I mean, we are always going to remember 2020 for its plethora of googlies thrown at us everywhere.
Unpredictability.
So why not remember it for a great footballing season instead?
I think I think that's the way it's going to be, though. I think it's going to be a season full of strange and remarkable score lines and results. Because I think in such a unpredictable, like you were saying, and a very inconsistent time, it will be difficult for players to stay, 100% focused all the time. So I am really looking forward to it.